Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today we're going to be recapping Day 15 of the Houston Texans 2023 training camp, as today was the first of 2 days of joint practice between the Houston Texans and the Miami Dolphins, as the Houston Texans play the Miami Dolphins at 3 o'clock on Saturday for the second preseason game, and before that preseason game, the Texans had joint practice with the Miami Dolphins today, and we'll have it again tomorrow. And then I believe they have the off day Friday, and then game day is Saturday. But yeah, let's recap today's recap today's camp. So, how about Dalton Schultz? He had his best day of camp today, by far. He had a lot of catches today. Was looking good, running routes, and what people are saying is that Dalton Schultz had his best day of Texans training camp. He was good in the red zone, and him and CJ Stroud was finding him nonstop. And I'm telling you guys, Dalton Schultz for the Texans as the tight end is going to be really good this season for the Houston Texans. He was good last year for Dallas. That's a team that, he's not, I know he's a tight end, but he's not the number one option. He's not getting the most targets. Guys like CeeDee Lamb are getting, the most targets. Probably even, a guy like Michael Gallup, when he's healthy, is getting more targets. And then also they have, they had a very heavy running game with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. I know Pollard's still there, but Elliott is gone. But I feel like there's a great chance you will see Dalton Schultz have more targets this season in Houston than he had last year in Dallas. I think Schultz will have a better year this season than he did last year with Dallas. I'm very excited to see what Schultz does. He did play he played like 2 drives in the first game against the Patriots in the preseason, but CJ did not target him at all. You did see him, on that play where CJ throws the interception in that Week 1 preseason game. Schultz was wide open for about maybe almost 10 yards, and CJ probably should have thrown the ball to Schultz. Would have caught it. Would have been about 10 yards, a 10-yard gain. Would have not been good. Because it was a 3rd and 21. And I think where Tank was when CJ threw that ball, maybe if Tank gets away, if he catches that ball and it's not an interception, maybe Tank gets a first down. I don't think there was any way Schultz gets a first down if CJ throws the ball to Schultz. But there was no targets to Dalton Schultz in the first preseason game. But I do think the Texans will get him more involved and play him more in this week's preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. And I'm really excited to see what he does today. How about Tank Dell? I was just talking about him just a second ago with that play where C.J. Stroud throws the interception in New England. Tank Dell was a beast today, mostly in the red zone. He was a monster. He had catches from both quarterbacks in Davis Mills and C.J. Stroud, but he had 3 touchdown passes from C.J. Stroud, all in the red zone. Tank Dell is becoming a go-to wide receiver for the Houston Texans, and he had a monster today. He had a monster day today with 3 touchdowns from C.J. Stroud. Also had some nice catches from Davis Mills. How about the quarterback play? Let's talk about that next. C.J. Stroud had a really solid day, while Davis Mills had an okay day. Started off slow, throwing 0 for 5, threw an interception. But then after that, after the rough start, after the first couple 6 or 7 throws, Davis Mills started to look better, had like 5 or 6 straight completions without, throwing an incompletion, and Davis Mills started to look better. Mills had an okay day. Stroud had a way better day, was looking good against this Miami defense, and I thought Stroud had a really good day for the Houston Texans. All right, let's get into fights. There were a couple of fights in today's Texans training camp. How about Christian Harris getting at it? He's been getting in some fights this week. He got in a fight with Texans running back Devin Singletary, which wasn't anything serious. And what D'Amico said is he's been waiting for this to happen. He wants players to get at it. But the first fight, there was 2 fights: Christian Harris and Dolphins running back Jeff Wilson. Harris slung him around to the sideline and Wilson took a swing. Both were pulled back by their teammates. So this is not necessarily Christian's fault here. Just Jeff Wilson, the running back here, got upset, took a swing. I don't think Harris took a swing back because both were pulled back by their teammates. Maybe, who knows, maybe Harris, tried to take a swing. I mean, who knows? But I mean, you're gonna see that you're gonna see that stuff during joint practices, and then the second fight, again, for the Texans defense, a group tackle on the left turned into a brief push around, and it dissolved in a few seconds. So, it was nothing serious. No players were named, so not too bad there. So yeah. A couple more observations. Jalen Petrie had a pick six today, and it is looking like Jalen Petrie is going to be a monster for the Houston Texans defense this year. Tua Tagovailoa was driving this Miami Dolphins offense down the field. They were getting close. They were driving close. They were, I think, around the red zone area, and a great read by Jalen Petrie. He takes it to the house. Tua threw a couple picks today, both being pick sixes. One to Christian Harris, who got in the brawl with Jeff Wilson, and the other being Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie is looking like he's going to have an all-pro type season. I'm so excited to see what Jalen Petrie will do on this defense last year. On this defense, Jalen Petrie was a stud as a rookie, was great. Arguably, I know Stingley had a good rookie year, but I thought with Jalen Petrie, maybe you could say being a lot more healthier and honestly being a little bit better of a player out there last year, I feel like Jalen Petrie was the best player on this Houston Texans defense last year as a rookie. And I just can't wait to see what he does for this Texans defense this year, especially with this defense improving now. Adding in Will Anderson Jr., adding in Denzel Perryman, Derek Stingley Jr. being healthy, adding in DeMeco Ryans as the head coach, adding in other pieces to the defense like Sheldon Rankings and just a whole ton of other veterans, Hassan Ridgeway, list goes on of guys that have been added in. So I feel like Jalen Petrie with his upgraded defense, I think Jalen Petrie will have also Jimmy Ward. I forgot to mention him as well to this upgraded defense. And, having him next to him in the secondary, this Texans defense is going to be way better this season. I think Jalen Petrie is going to take the next level this season, this upcoming season in his second year. Robert Woods had some nice catches today. He made some nice plays connecting with quarterback C.J. Stroud. And, yeah, so Robert Woods, he's been a guy who's been a little bit quiet throughout camp and did not play in Thursday's preseason game against the Patriots. I'm assuming he will play against the Miami Dolphins on Saturday, and we'll see Robert Woods out there. I don't know if it's for long, but I think Robert Woods should have a good season with the Texans this year. Let's get into some Miami Dolphins. I know we don't want to talk about the Dolphins too much, but this turns into a good thing for the Texans. Tua Tagovailoa had some great drives, but he also threw some picks to Jalen Petrie and Christian Harris. Both were pick sixes as well. And the last observation, leave Christian Harris in space. Christian Harris is going to be a stud for this defense this year. And he showed it today with that pick six and with how aggressive he is. He's been a monster on the defense. I think he's going to be the leader, one of the big leaders of this defense, and he's going to be a monster for the Texans this year. So, I mean, yeah, it was a good day for and a couple one more observation. Steven Sims, wide receiver, had a good day, was making some catches, had a couple of first down catches, had a diving catch as well. Steven Sims is a guy I feel like is a little bit underrated, and I feel like maybe he could make the 53-man roster. Not only do you have multiple talents that he is adding in by giving him a spot on the 53-man roster. Steven Sims is a guy who, he's a decent wide receiver, really solid wide receiver, but he's a great specialist teamer as well with, being a great kick returner. So I really do see potentially Steven Sims making this roster. I don't know about playing wide receiver a lot, but I think Steven Sims, there's a great chance he will be the 2023 kick returner and maybe even a little bit at punt returner as well for the Houston Texans this season. I think he'll be a guy who probably does make the 53-man roster. So it was a great day for the Houston Texans for training camp in this joint one this joint practice, day 1 and day 15 of training camp. CJ Stroud looks good. Davis Mills looks okay. Dalton Schultz has arguably his best day of out of all 15 days of training camp. Dalton Schultz was on fire today. The defense looked good. Will Anderson was blowing by the Miami offensive line. Will Anderson was a monster today for this Texans defense. Guys like Will Anderson and Jalen Petrie and Christian Harris were monsters on the defense today, with 2 interceptions by those two right there, and Christian Harris and Jalen Petrie. Stroud was good. Tank Dell was great with 3 touchdowns. Schultz had his best day of camp. Steven Sims on the offense was good, catching some balls from both Davis Mills and CJ Stroud. Robert Woods had a really nice day for the Texans as well, and it was a great day. And the Texans picked off Tua a couple times as well. User thoughts on day 15 of the Houston Texans training camp and day one of 2 of joint practice with the Miami Dolphins. Can't wait for Saturday's game. I will be there, and I'm so excited to go to week 2 of the preseason for that first home game of 2023, even if it's preseason. User thoughts, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Texans.